So, a very warm welcome to Sci-Fi once again. And today we are delighted to welcome someone who's changing the shape and contours of digital India, and in fact, is taking India to the world. Our guest today is Bhavish Agarwal, CEO of Ola Cabs, someone who's founded and is shaping the future of this very dynamic enterprise. Bhavish, welcome to Sci-Fi.
Samir, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here with you and to speak with you and to interact with the audience.
Bhavish, we are in a particular moment right now. Of course, the pandemic has informed us all of the centrality of technology, of the centrality of a connected world, of the power of the digital. You are someone who has built his uh, business and enterprise on this model, on the digital model, on the connected model. But now we see Bhavish not being satisfied with being India's digital man, going into manufacturing and going into the old world. We
Mm.
are seeing the real and digital collide, not only in your enterprise, but also in the real world, the conflation of these two domains. What are the plans for Ola in this new economic landscape?
Samir, that's a very interesting question, and frankly, I will actually step back and start from my origins, and chart my journey and hopefully bring out some insights. So I started Ola in 2010, end of 2010. And at that time, India was just at the cusp of this mobile/digital revolution. And I was, a young 24-year-old kid. Nobody believed a startup would do much in India back then. Uh, but since then, we've had a tremendous run building a fairly new age digital enterprise in India and now increasingly globally also. Basically what we've done in the first 10 years of our existence is built India's largest digital mobility platform and also one of the world's top 5 mobility platforms. Right? If you remember what using mobility services was like 10 years ago to today, there's a massive change. And the massive change is not just about us, but it's about the advent of technology and the way digitization has permeated all industries, even something as non obvious as, let's say, taxi services or mobility services. Right? But when I step back from that and look at the technology disruptions happening in our life and the broader play possible for companies like us and for India, right? Across industries, across value chains, there is multiple revolutions happening at the same time. For example, if you take my industry, which is mobility, and there's digitization, which is what we have built so far. There is also new energy paradigms emerging with electrification, with hydrogen, etc. Because of these two technologies kind of intersecting, the formats of vehicles and paradigms of vehicles itself is changing. What used to be a simple scooter or a motorbike, that category has evolved into micro-mobility, smart electric two-wheelers, cars are changing in format, autonomous vehicles, flying cars, drones. There's a lot of explosion about mobility, formats of mobility services, etc. And I also believe, Samir, that this is happening in parallel across the world. It is not as if India is being a recipient of this disruption after 10 years of it happening in Silicon Valley or elsewhere in China. So the opportunity for companies like us and new age young companies is to think big, think global, think across value chains, think across technology paradigms, digital, energy, industrial tech, more broadly, and truly build technology paradigms of the future for the whole world. So that's in a way what we have increasingly tried to do. It might seem from the outside that a digital guy is doing manufacturing, but in my view, it all is a seamless way of disrupting the mobility value chain with the consumer at the core and the consumer at the center and technology at the heart of the business models.
So, Bhavish, just for those who are joining us from outside India, who will be watching this conversation, where are we on your newest baby, as it were? How is it doing? What has been the response? What are the numbers? Just to give a sense to people who are watching this show.
Absolutely, Samir. So we set up Ola Electric about 3 years back, and Ola, as I mentioned, is a leading rideshare company, one of the world's top 5 rideshare companies, and we set up a sister company called Ola Electric. If you look at the world of mobility and the world of automobiles, every year the world sells about 100 million four-wheelers and about 100 million two-wheelers. And the need to electrify is clear to everybody today. 3 years ago it was still in debate, but today it is very, very clear that we need to electrify transport so that we can accelerate this journey to sustainability. Now, globally, there's been a lot of movement around electric vehicles. Companies like Tesla, a couple of companies in China, etc., pure play EV companies really pushing the bar on electric mobility and electric energy. The only issue is that most of those companies are building what I would call Western style products, which is luxury four-wheelers, large sedans, pickup trucks. Now, majority of those 200 million vehicles I counted for you don't fall into that vehicle category. Majority of those products are two-wheelers, three-wheelers, small, mid-sized four-wheelers, city cars, vehicles which I would call urban mobility vehicles. And there is nobody focusing on electrifying these, and these are relevant in obviously markets like India, developing part of the world, but also very relevant in places like Europe, where a lot of cities are increasingly encouraging smaller format electric mobility, or smaller format four-wheelers, two-wheelers, micro-mobility kind of electric mobility. And that's our focus, Samir. So our ambition is to be the world's largest urban mobility electric vehicle player. We've made a start with our two-wheeler business. And for the two-wheelers, we have set up the world's largest manufacturing plant here in India, which was set up in record time. We built it in about 7 months from purchasing the land to the first vehicle off the line. And we will build there. We have a capacity of building 10 million units a year in that single plant to sell in India and sell globally. And then after that, we're also working on our four-wheeler product, which will be in the market in early 2023. And that will also be made in India and sold across the world.
So what are the numbers looking right now? Out of those 10 million, how many have you already sold this year?
So we just started our purchases a month ago, and we had within a month, we had about 500,000 people pre-ordering the vehicle. Right? It's been a crazy response, and many people feel that the market in India market for electric vehicles is still early, but what, the market is ready, the consumers are ready, but the incumbents and the companies operating in the mobility automobile domain were not offering the right kind of product to the consumer. So we came up with a revolutionary product which consumers have really loved, and more than 500,000 have pre-ordered even before we have delivered the first one. So the delivery start later this month, and there's a lot of interest in our product.
So Bhavish, these will be in some sense connected devices. In some sense, these devices are mapped because of the energy they use, the electric batteries they continue to replenish through your networks and through your dealers. Now, in this connected world, what is a futuristic business case around the data that you're going to collect with so many folks using your vehicles, driving to various locations, moving around cities? What is the new business models you can see emerge from this connected sector?
Oh, Samir, I think that's absolutely the future. Our vehicles today are no longer mechanical devices without a brain. Vehicles have become smart, AI-driven connected devices, and the connectedness or the digital technologies enable a very different paradigm of ownership and experience of the vehicle. For example, vehicles have much more intelligence about what's happening inside them. So predictive maintenance, before you know it, the vehicle would know that it's going bad. With sensors and IoT devices across, let's say the tire, the brake pad, the engine, or the motor in this case, you can essentially predict any kind of failure before it happens in a much more smarter way than even, frankly, jet engines, etc. So once you do that, the customer experience of servicing the vehicle, of the cost of maintenance really goes down, and the experience, convenience of owning a vehicle goes up. If you think of insurance, insurance today is a very standard product, average product across different consumers. With connected vehicles, you know how the vehicle is being driven. You know how the consumer is braking. You know how he's accelerating. You know how he or she is, what kind of distance they're maintaining with the vehicle in front of them through V2X technologies. So you can really price the insurance custom to the consumer, which is actually how it should have always been done. But because this data was never there in real time, you could never have done it. But now you can do that. Our scooters from the next product onwards will have cameras in front of them. So we will have assisted driving capabilities in the scooters also. We will be able to alert the customer when there's something we believe potentially might go wrong in front of him. right? We can map the whole city and figure out where the potholes are and alert the customer in advance to take a different route. Or so all these kind of experiences of ownership, user experience, and even frankly entertainment in the cars. The fact that it's a connected device connected to the cloud, you can have all kinds of multiplayer games inside the car for the hopefully not for the driver till we have autonomous vehicles, but for the passengers, right? So it's a very different paradigm itself which is emerging in what vehicles are and what they mean to consumers.
And obviously, Ola is already working with city authorities and working on traffic management and helping ease pollution questions, etc. I want to actually, you used the word sustainability, and I want to actually delve deeper into that. I think a country like India, which has a very low car density per thousand people, need not follow the models adopted either in the US or Europe, and perhaps even China and Brazil. Now, how do we retain these large Indian aspirational class and their fondness for two-wheelers beyond the 20s? We see the youth preferring the two-wheeler, and then social mobility pressures pushing them to the four-wheeler. Now, how do we continue to ensure that the two-wheeler remains sexy and fun and cool? So what is Bhavish, who's the coolest digital India man, doing to make the two-wheeler remain a passion for life?
Samir, very interesting point you raised. If you look at the future of mobility consumption in India, and you compare that to the West, in the US, there is more than one car per person. So 330 odd million people, about 400 million cars. So a high penetration of car ownership. In India, a four-wheeler penetration is about 30 per thousand, which is very, very low even compared to China, where it's more than 200 per thousand. Two-wheeler penetration in India is also only 160 per thousand. So it is much lesser than even the four-wheeler penetration in China. So all in all, vehicle ownership in India is less than 20% penetration. With the rise of shared mobility solutions like Ola, where you don't need to own a vehicle, you can use it as a service on a ride basis or on a day basis or on a monthly basis by subscribing. More and more consumers will have options to use these services versus buy their own vehicle. Or more and more households will have the option of not buying a second vehicle or not buying a third vehicle. Now, in India, because vehicle ownership is already so low, the ideal state, let's say in 5 to 10 years, would be vehicle ownership also needs to rise, especially, and that rise has to be in sustainable urban mobility or small format vehicles so that it doesn't lead to congestion, doesn't lead to pollution. Right? If today vehicle ownership, including two and four wheelers, is let's say 20% in India, that needs to go up to 40%. But India can never get to the 100% levels in the West because we just don't have that level of infrastructure. And the cost of creating that infrastructure will be prohibitive. So the future would be a blend of shared mobility and personal mobility. Shared mobility will be, let's say, broadly half of the use cases of consumers of mobility. Personal mobility will be half of the use cases. But both have to be built in a more sustainable way so that there is less pollution and also in a way that it improves traffic on the roads versus worsening it. Right? And like you said, the solution there is to help increase penetration of maybe a different paradigm of public transport, which would be not a skeletal network, but more a point-to-point, small format public transport network, like 10-seaters, 15-seaters, 20-seaters, so that people find more convenience in public transport versus just operating like a train service. Two-wheelers is actually, I believe, core to India's future of mobility. Indians love two-wheelers, like you mentioned, young people love two-wheelers, but the two-wheeler also was in need of a reinvention. The two-wheeler has to be a product of excitement and of freedom and of joy to the consumer, not one of a boring commute. Right? And I believe with our product, the Ola S1, we have really built a product which consumers are going to love. And frankly, electrification allows you to do that because you can connect, you can build so many connected features. The vehicle, even something as classical as vehicle design needs to be much more in tune with the current ethos of the Indian young millennials. Right, and the two-wheelers tended to be boring, dull, drab designs from the past. So, and even performance, two-wheelers can be very high-performing vehicles. So our proposition in the two-wheeler world is best performance, best design, best technology, and connectivity. And that's what I believe will really make young people love two-wheelers even more and decide not to buy a four-wheeler till later in their life and use shared mobility for that period. And also, let's say a household of husband, wife, and maybe one or two young kids can make do with one two-wheeler or maybe one four-wheeler instead of two or three four-wheelers.
So basically, potentially, I could not own a single vehicle and yet have a two-wheeler, a four-wheeler available at my disposal through a co-ownership or a shared
Absolutely.
economy model. And Ola is seeing itself equally as a manufacturing company as a service provider for mobility solutions across generations. Um, Let me ask you a slightly more tricky question on the sector as such. How are you seeing an uptake by city authorities and governments for what you are offering? Are we building infrastructure? Are smart city designs, in some sense, including the need to have outlets that can fuel these electric offerings? Are we seeing housing societies and neighborhoods reach out to you and say, Bhavish, come and install a charging point in our locality? Are we seeing a new momentum there? Are we seeing citizens respond to you?
So, Samir, the simple answer is yes, in a overwhelming way. But the details are, sometimes we in India rely mentally too much on the government setting up infrastructure. I think it's one of our, our baggage from the past, I believe. Right? But most infrastructure is successful only if there are market forces driving it. And with electric vehicles also, now the time is now where the market forces are evolved. And for the market to be driving infrastructure incentivization, there needs to be demand from the consumer for the core product. It starts from something as first principles as that. The consumers need to love the product. The companies need to believe in that disruption at scale so that we can accelerate the journey of transformation of that industry like electric vehicles. And then the business model around charging infrastructure, etc., will be such a natural fit that many companies will invest for that, including, let's say, for example, Ola is investing in its own charging network because we believe we want to offer a higher grade of service on charging also to our consumers. But we're also seeing a lot of small startups, a lot of larger companies bringing in their resources to invest into the charging infrastructure, including, like you mentioned, housing societies, RWAs, etc. There's a lot of movement and momentum now to build infrastructure for charging. For two-wheelers, the infrastructure will be generally lighter touch than a four-wheeler. Two-wheeler can be easily charged with a 6 amp or 15, 16 amp wall socket, our two-wheeler especially. So we were talking to RWAs to help them kind of retrofit the parking spaces with the relevant plug points or smart sockets, etc., which is not very heavy investment. And almost all RWAs are very open to that. Infrastructure around public charging also is growing. Government institutions, other installations with the real estate space are looking to monetize the real estate space, be it fuel stations or retail spaces or hospitals, etc. And we are talking to them to install our hypercharger network in those stations. And frankly, other companies are also talking to them to install their charging solutions. The government is also, in my view, playing their role by incentivizing infrastructure setup, which is, I believe, in a way, the Indian government has probably the most, it's leaning in the most at a global level in electrification than I see in any country, even in Europe or China, etc. The kind of efforts by the government around, the FAME subsidy for the consumer, the PLI scheme for automotive companies, the charging infrastructure incentives, and even at the state level, the consumer and infra subsidies are probably the highest in the world. And that is a very big signal. And beyond that, I don't think we should we should ask for anything from the government. The onus is on the market forces and the entrepreneurs to create this disruption.
So, Bhavish, with your ride-sharing model, with Ola cabs, you were able to create a global footprint. You are not only one of the largest in India, in fact, the largest in India, but also globally, you were able to exert a significant presence. Do you think the time is ripe for a new global Indian corporation in this digital retail space? And I call it retail because all these products are deeply personal. Individuals choose. It's not about, while you call it bulk transport, but really it is about personal choice as well. So how does this moment allow someone like you to become the global czar of mobility, of digital mobility, of the shared economy?
Samir, I believe this decade is India's decade in many ways, and there's a lot of enablers which are coming together in ways that, at least in my little experience of a decade I have not seen before, right? India is a large and growing market. It's becoming a market of global relevance. India has become a digital first economy with the kind of smartphone penetration, with the data rates, and also with the government's initiatives around, let's say, the UPI framework, etc. So India has become a digital first nation in its thought process. And the access to capital for young startups like us is like never before, right? And the fourth part is India is also in general broadly accepted around the world, unlike some of our other Asian peers, right? Other Asian peers are maybe turning inwards. And India as a culture, as an ethos, has always been more broader in its acceptance to global philosophies, right? So I think this is the moment for Indian companies to really solve for technology, solve for the next decade of problems and challenges, and really lead the creation of the paradigms, technology paradigms of the next decade, be it in electric mobility, like what we are doing with urban mobility electric vehicles. Nobody else is doing that in the world at the scale at which we are doing. Be it ride sharing or a different sustainable future of ride sharing with electric at the core, with community centricity at the core. Or even with our third pillar of our mobility business is what we call new auto retail, where we need to envision a much more digital, customer-centric view of how people consume and purchase and sell vehicles and manage their vehicles. Included in that is insurance, lending, etc. So it is time for Indian companies to leverage the scale of India, the access to capital, the access to talent. The talent in India is a global talent hub. Every company recognizes that. And also leverage the goodwill India has in general as a culture, but also in the business community, and create global paradigms. We've made some early moves in that. We've gotten early success. Our ride-sharing business operates in UK, Australia, New Zealand, and our electric vehicles will be sold globally starting early next year, Europe, ASEAN, North America. And we are getting a great adoption in all these markets for our products, right? And I believe we will see a lot more Indian companies increasingly go global, increasingly become a part of the next generation technology stack, or what you call retail brands for the future.
So, Bhavish, before we conclude this fascinating conversation, two thoughts for you. The first, of course, is that we hope you will come back each year, and we will do a state of play every year on how the digital sector is getting more exciting, dynamic, and how it is evolving. But the second thought for you, rather a question for you, would be that if there are youngsters out there watching this conversation, they would want to be Bhavish Aggarwal. They would want to build the next big tech solution for the world, like you said, solving problems for the world. They would like to put together a new enterprise. What are your mantras that you would like to share with them? What should a young person do to be Bhavish Aggarwal?
Samir, I would love to be here whenever you want to have me here. So would love to do that. On entrepreneurship and general, see, I don't think youngsters need advice or guidance today. Youngsters are very clear in what they want. They're very confident, self-aware, ambitious, aspirational. I'm not that older guy, but I feel when I look at the young 20-year-olds today, I feel that I wish I was 20-year-old again. Right? So I don't think they need advice, but all I would say is, if you have a dream, just follow it. Don't delay. Don't worry about failure. You will learn along the way, and you will, as long as you're true to yourself and true to your ambitions, you will make it to whatever you want to make it to. So it's as simple as that. But the youngsters I learn from the youngsters every day, the kind of ambition, aspiration, confidence that they have.
Bhavish, thanks a lot. We will all learn along the way, but I'm sure we will all enjoy the journey you have embarked on, and we wish you success. I think India requires this new momentum to be taken to its logical conclusion, and your business particularly is going to respond to not only the mobility challenge, but also the climate challenge that the world is trying to confront at this moment as we head to Glasgow. Thank you so much, Bhavish, for joining us at Sci-Fi, and I hope to see you in person next year at this event.
Thank you so much, Samir. Look forward.